Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. And a special welcome if you're tuning in via the Baha'i Reflections channel.
Yes, welcome.
If this is your first time with us, well, this is where we really dig deep. We take a focused look into the sacred writings, trying to pull out the core meaning of different spiritual virtues and see how they actually apply, in the real world.
And today, we're tackling a big one. A virtue that, let's be honest, sometimes gets reduced to just ritual. Devotion.
Right.
We want to really explore it, show it as this incredibly powerful, active, fundamental quality. At least that's how the Baha'i Writings present it. It's so much more than just looking pious.
Absolutely. And before we dive into the texts themselves, I just want to take a moment, a genuine thank you to everyone listening right now, to our fantastic community of subscribers already with us. And look, a really special shout out to our YouTube channel members.
Yeah.
Your support, whether it's clicking subscribe or becoming a member, it honestly makes these deep dives possible. It keeps the channel going, allows us to spend this time really getting into the source material each week.
It really does. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah.
And the source material itself, it frames devotion in such a beautiful way. It's not presented as like a heavy obligation, first and foremost.
No.
It's described more as an inner flame, a kind of wholehearted dedication to the path of God. It's almost like the spiritual engine.
Yeah.
It doesn't just sit alongside other virtues. It actually fuels them.
That distinction, the inner flame versus just the outward act, that feels crucial.
It is.
So our mission today, our goal is to unpack this virtue using specific passages. We've got writings from Bahá'u'lláh and Abdu'l-Bahá. We want to analyze how devotion really shows up. Spiritually, yes, in the heart, but also practically in our actions, our conduct, and importantly, how that impacts the people around us.
Okay.
So let's start right there at the foundation, defining devotion as that necessary, that total turning of the heart.
Okay, so foundationally, devotion is really about orientation. Where are you pointing your life? It's that that inner spark, that flame of love that just naturally starts pulling us closer to God, to the source. But it's not passive. It's not just feeling warm fuzzies. It requires this intentional, very conscious effort to turn our hearts entirely toward the divine purpose. Yeah. The aim is nearness.
Nearness.
Not just when we're praying, but in every thought, every word, every action.
Yeah.
Trying to make our whole life about that connection.
Okay, let's unpack that intentionality then. What does a wholly devoted heart actually look like? We've got a really powerful passage from Baha'u'lláh right here that connects this inner turning directly with, well, a pretty radical spiritual transformation, a kind of restructuring inside.
Yeah, let's hear it. It's always best to hear the source directly. It captures the intensity of the commitment required.
Okay, this is from the tablets of Baha'u'lláh. Blessed is the man that hath set his face toward God, and hath turned thereunto wholly devoted. Such a one is in truth counted among the company of the sincere. His heart is illumined with the light of the Almighty, and his soul burneth with the fire of love for his beauty.
Wow. Okay, the first thing that jumps out at me is just the force of that phrase, wholly devoted.
Yeah.
It's not partial. It's not, mostly devoted. It implies a state where there's nothing held back, no reserve. If life's a journey, being wholly devoted means your compass is locked on target, and you've basically burned the maps for any other destinations.
And the immediate result mentioned is being counted among the company of the sincere. That suggests sincerity isn't just like telling the truth. It's this total, undivided commitment in your orientation.
Exactly.
If your heart's only half turned, there's still room for insincerity, for the self, for something else to sneak in and kind of muddy the waters, compromise the motive.
That's the critical link, I think. Sincerity flows from devotion, because devotion gets rid of that duality of purpose. But the promise here, it goes way beyond just being morally upright. Once that complete devotion is there, the passage promises this extraordinary state of being.
Yeah.
A radiant, active state.
Yeah. The heart is illumined with the light of the Almighty, and the soul burneth with the fire of love. That imagery, it's so strong. It's not just warmth. It's a consuming, passionate fire. What's the significance, do you think, of that fire of love specifically?
Well, fire, in a lot of mystical traditions, it's the ultimate transformer, right? The purifier. It burns away impurities. It tests strength. It provides energy. So when the soul burneth with the fire of love, it's saying devotion isn't just a feeling. It's this active, all-consuming passion that's constantly refining the person.
Okay.
It suggests this sustained, intense, you could say unquenchable drive towards God. So devotion isn't something you just do sometimes. It becomes this fundamental, active, generating state of being. The devotion itself creates the light and the passion needed to keep growing spiritually.
That really sharpens the difference between just going through the motions, the ritual, and the actual reality of devotion.
Yeah.
A lot of people might equate devotion with, say, reciting prayers or showing up for services. But this definition implies that unless the heart is fully turned, unless it's lit by that fire, the outward stuff lacks spiritual weight. They're just empty forms.
Precisely. The outer act gets its significance from the inner state. And this connects directly to the next point, which is the link between devotion, obedience, and, well, self-abnegation.
Right.
Giving up the self.
Right.
It's one thing to want the illumination and the fire, but what's the cost of that turning? If devotion has to be total, what needs to be surrendered?
This brings us to a very powerful, maybe even challenging passage from the Hidden Words.
Yeah.
It directly addresses the main obstacle to this total turning, the self. I'll read it now. It's addressed straight to the human soul.
Okay.
From Baha'u'lláh, the Hidden Words. O son of man, obey me and not thyself, and incline thy heart to none except my mention, for my love hath taken hold upon thee, and my devotion is manifest unto thee.
Such a definitive command there. Obey me and not thyself. The link between obedience and getting rid of self-will is absolute. What is the self we're told not to obey? Is it saying we need to destroy our personality or something else?
I think we have to differentiate, right, between our rational soul, our God-given identity, and that grasping, impulsive ego, the self that always wants validation, comfort, instant gratification. When the writings say thyself, I think they mean that self-will that pulls against the divine standard. It's kind of a zero-sum game with the ego, isn't it? To be devoted to God, you have to consciously minimize the ego's control over your choices.
And that's the absolute precondition for real devotion. If you obey yourself, your whims, your attachments, your desires, you're obeying the very things that veil you from God. We'll talk more about those veils later.
Yeah.
The passage is basically saying the self, our personal desires, our immediate impulses, our ingrained habits, the urge to put our comfort first.
Yeah.
That's the main roadblock. It's a huge psychological challenge.
And if you look around today, what does obeying thyself look like in practice?
Oh, it looks like constant distraction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Prioritizing endless scrolling over, doing something meaningful, choosing the easy route when sacrifice is needed, seeking approval from others instead of seeking God's acceptance. Anytime our main driver is personal ease or getting ahead in the world, we're obeying the self. And fundamentally, we're not devoted.
And the second part, incline thy heart to none except my mention, that really hammers home the need for focus, total focus. If the heart's cluttered with other things, ambition, money, status, it can't really be centered on the divine purpose. It's a call for radical, singular attention.
And yet, the passage ends with this beautiful reassurance, doesn't it? It confirms that this radical turning is asked of us because God's love and devotion have already taken hold of us. It's not asking us to jump into a void.
That's such a subtle but vital point. You don't obey just to earn the love. You obey to realize the love that's already there, already manifest.
Right.
God's devotion, his love for us, is inherent. Our job is just to clear away the clutter, the veils of self-interest, so we can actually perceive it and receive it. When we empty our hearts of those other attachments, that inner flame, which God already lit with his devotion, we can finally see it.
So, wrapping up this first part, devotion is this fiery, illuminating inner state. You get there by turning the heart completely, prioritizing God's will over your own self-will. It's a state where your whole being is oriented in one direction.
Exactly. Like the inner thermostat is cranked up to maximum spiritual heat. But okay, if that's the internal fire, how does it actually fuel our outward life? How do we make sure that fire doesn't just stay inside? Which brings us neatly to section 2, devotion in action. Okay, so if devotion is this powerful inner flame, we need to see how that translates into how we actually live our lives, our conduct. This is where spirituality gets practical. Abdu'l-Bahá is very clear that real devotion shows up through action and through steadfastness. Basically, taking that spiritual energy we just talked about and applying it to the world.
All right, this is where it moves from maybe mysticism into practical ethics. It defines the output. If you claim you're devoted, your life has to show the results of that inner turning. I have a passage here from Abdu'l-Bahá's Paris Talks that gives us a kind of definitive checklist for what practical devotion looks like, and it clearly states what it's not.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Abdu'l-Bahá says, true devotion is not confined to the chanting of prayers or the reading of holy words, but it is in the purity of motive, in the sincerity of action, and in the constancy of service for the betterment of the world. When man's heart becomes wholly devoted to the good of all, then he draws nearer unto God.
That is such a critical distinction. Right off the bat, it separates devotion from just ritual.
Yep.
Rituals might help, they might support devotion, but they aren't the thing itself. What we've got here is this triad: purity of motive, sincerity of action, and constancy of service. You need all three. It's not pick and choose.
Let's break that down because each one is pretty deep. Purity of motive, that's the internal check. Why are you doing this? Is it to look good, to get something back? Or is it purely for God and for the good of humanity? This goes right back to section 1, giving up the self.
Then there's sincerity of action. This is about the integrity of the deed itself. Are you really putting your best effort in? Are you doing it honestly, wholeheartedly? Or are you cutting corners, doing it halfway? It's like the quality control on what you actually do.
And finally, constancy of service. This hits on the durability, the staying power. Is this just a flash in the pan, a burst of enthusiasm that fades after a week? Or is it a steady, reliable commitment that keeps going even when it's tough or nobody's noticing?
That constancy, that feels like the toughest one for most of us, maybe.
I think so.
We can sometimes get fired up for a big project, but the daily, quiet, unseen acts of service, that's where devotion really gets tested. It's like planting a tree is exciting, but constancy is the patient, daily watering year after year when no one's watching.
Exactly. You could have the purest motive, do something with total sincerity, but if it only happens once in a blue moon, it lacks that constancy. And so, according to this, it lacks true devotion. The measure is the endurance, the steadfastness of the effort.
And the ultimate aim of all three, motive, sincerity, constancy, is service for the betterment of the world. The passage says point blank that getting closer to God happens when the heart is wholly devoted to the good of all. So devotion isn't just about my personal spiritual journey in a vacuum. It's fundamentally social, altruistic.
This completely reframes what worship even means. Service to others, when it comes from that pure and constant heart, is the act of drawing nearer to God. It forces anyone trying to live this way to constantly look outward, not just inward. Your spiritual progress is actually measured by your positive, lasting impact on others, on the community.
And this commitment to action, to deeds, is underscored by one of the most serious, almost startling statements in the writings about words versus deeds. If true devotion is action, what happens spiritually if it's all talk and no follow-through? This next passage. It's a very stark warning.
It is.
This is from Bahá'u'lláh in the tablets. The essence of faith is fewness of words and abundance of deeds. He whose words exceed his deeds, know verily his death is better than his life.
Wow, that just hits you, doesn't it? It's incredibly serious. We have to really think about the spiritual weight of saying someone's death is better than their life.
Yeah.
This isn't casual advice. It's a profound ethical alert.
The seriousness, I think, it highlights the danger of hypocrisy or maybe just spiritual negligence. If devotion is faith shown through steady action, then the person who talks a great game, the spiritual talker, but doesn't actually do anything, they're spiritually bankrupt. Their words become a kind of veil, creating an illusion of piety, but masking an empty core.
And the problem isn't just that they haven't achieved devotion. The problem is that their flood of words can mislead other people, and it corrupts the speaker, too. It stops them from ever facing the real cost, the real effort of commitment. The truest sense of devotion is measured by actual, tangible effort, not just saying the right things or having lofty ideas.
So for anyone listening who wants concrete takeaways, this means devotion demands action now. It's a call to actually weigh your daily efforts against your daily chatter. If you talk for an hour about unity, you need to be spending way more time actively building it in your own life, your own community.
And we have to remember, this statement is like a necessary check against self-deception. It's easy to claim any virtue. But devotion, that gets tested by what you actually produce, what you do. The writings demand our actions match the intensity of the love we claim to have. If they don't, the devotion is incomplete. Or maybe it's just not there at all.
But okay, let's pause. Sometimes the effort we make feels small or imperfect. Even if we try to have abundant deeds, how do we know those actions are actually accepted? Spiritually speaking, that brings us back to intention, connecting that inner purity back to the outward action.
That's vital. The inner state gives the deed its spiritual value. This quote from Abdu'l-Bahá, from selections from his writings, it ties sincerity and devotion together so clearly. It explains their roles kind of sequentially.
Oh, okay.
He says, "Be sincere in your deeds and devoted in your intentions, for sincerity is the foundation of faith, and devotion is the pathway to divine acceptance."
Ah, that's a great clarification. Sincerity is the foundation you're being honest about, your commitment, your effort, but devotion. That's the active directional force. It focuses the sincerity, and it becomes the actual pathway for the deeds to be accepted by God.
Yes. Intention is everything here.
Yeah.
Think about it. Two people do the exact same act of service. Let's say tutoring kids who need help. One person does it mainly to boost their resume, get some recognition. The other does it out of genuine, devoted love for God and humanity, seeking absolutely nothing back for themselves.
The outward action looks identical. Same amount of time spent.
But the spiritual value, completely different. Devotion is like the quality control for divine acceptance. It's the direction of your intention, your why, that makes the deed sacred. Without that devoted intention, the action is just secular, maybe even ego-driven. But with devotion, that same action transforms into an act of worship.
Okay, so we've gone from the inner fire, turning the heart in section 1, to the active proof of that turning through sincerity, constancy, and putting deeds first in section 2. We've got the engine and the fuel. So now let's look at the results. What are the tangible, visible fruits of a life lived with devotion, both for the person living it and for the world around them?
Right, so if a devoted life means acting for the betterment of the world, then the most obvious fruit has to be service to others. And Abdu'l-Bahá makes this incredible link, basically saying service is worship, which is, well, it's a pretty radical way to think about spiritual life.
It really is. It just dissolves that old idea that spiritual life only happens in certain buildings or at certain times. This passage from Abdu'l-Bahá, again from selections from his writings, it sums up this radical shift perfectly.
Let's hear it.
He says, "O my friend, the path to God is through service to his creatures. Whoso devoteth his life to the welfare of others hath truly worshipped his Lord."
The clarity is just stunning, isn't it?
No gray area. The path to God is service. And devotion, at its highest level, means prioritizing the well-being of others. And doing that is truly worshiping God. It means if I spend my whole day serving people with a pure heart, sincerely, constantly, I'm engaged in the highest worship, even if I didn't do any formal prayers or rituals that day.
This is the practical bottom line of the whole idea of devotion. It answers that constant question. Okay, but how do I be devoted? The answer is by putting the welfare of creation first. It removes the wall between sacred and secular. The dedication, the effort, the sacrifice involved in selfless service. It gets elevated to the highest spiritual place a person can reach.
Okay, if we accept that, then the biggest hurdle becomes forgetting the self, which we touched on. If we have to be devoted to the good of all, then the ego has to be managed somehow.
Exactly. The true spirit of devotion is defined by turning away from the self. In Paris Talks, Abdu'l-Bahá says, "Let your hearts be filled with loving kindness for all peoples and nations of the world." This is the true spirit of devotion, to forget self and to labor for the happiness of others.
That phrase, to forget self, it sounds intense, psychologically demanding. Is it saying we need to erase our identity? Or is it more about just minimizing the ego's grip on our actions, letting pure devotion lead instead?
I think it's definitely the minimization of the ego, that dust of desire we'll get to, not destroying the unique spiritual self God created. To forget self means stepping outside that constant mental calculation of what's in it for me, or how does this make me look?
Right.
It means acting spontaneously from love and duty without needing applause or reward. When the self is forgotten, then working for others, happiness becomes, well, more natural, effortless almost, and genuine.
And crucially, that loving kindness has to be for all people, all nations. Devotion isn't supposed to be partisan or exclusive. It has to benefit the widest possible circle. That universal scope is part of the definition.
And when that self-forgetting work becomes constant, our whole daily life starts to become sacred. If service is worship, then how does our everyday stuff become spiritual? Abdu'l-Bahá gives us this beautiful image here, suggesting our actions can actually be prayers.
That's a lovely thought. It changes how you approach work, interactions, everything.
It does.
Okay, this is also from Paris Talks. "Strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. Turn toward God and seek always to reflect his light. Let your heart burn with the flame of devotion to the highest ideals of humanity, and let your life become a song of praise to the Lord."
See how it completely merges prayer and action.
Yeah.
Your daily conduct is the offering. It's not just what you do, but the way you do it. Making sure every action reflects that devoted intention. It speaks to the attitude, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're doing some routine chore, if you approach it sincerely, wanting to glorify God, that chore becomes a beautiful prayer.
I really like the imagery of reflecting God's light and life becoming a song of praise. It suggests devotion isn't meant to be grim or heavy,
No.
which is sometimes the stereotype of darkly religious people, isn't it? It should feel radiant, joyful, even
Yeah.
attractive.
Absolutely. The joy here isn't just fleeting happiness. It's that deep spiritual certainty that comes from knowing you're aligned with God's purpose. That consistent, devoted effort towards the highest ideals of humanity that transforms work into this joyful spiritual song. Life becomes this ongoing act of worship.
And that radiance, it has an outward effect. It's not just a private feeling. The devotion of one person can actually bring healing for the world. We hear that phrase, healing for the world. But how does that healing actually happen, practically, from one person's devotion?
It happens through purity. Purity acts like this powerful spiritual force. The devoted heart becomes like a clean mirror, reflecting divine light out into the world. Also in Paris Talks, it says, "The pure in heart are the mirrors of God, reflecting his light upon all who draw near them. In their devotion, there is healing for the world, for their love is steadfast and without end."
So, the spiritual light is the source of the healing. When someone cleans their own mirror through devotion, they don't just see themselves better, they reflect God's light outward. And that reflection itself is like potent medicine for society, spiritually speaking.
Yes, the healing is mainly moral and social, I think. A devoted person radiates things like patience, integrity, non-judgment, steadfast love. When people encounter that genuine, selfless love described as steadfast and without end, it gives them comfort, maybe guidance, spiritual strength to deal with their own stuff. It shows the ripple effect, the collective power of individual devotion.
And just to kind of wrap up this section, Baha'u'lláh gives a final, very practical instruction on how this devotion needs to look in our actual conduct, emphasizing that joyful quality again.
Yes, the focus on joy and purity is key. It ensures devotion doesn't become severe or judgmental. Baha'u'lláh in the tablets instructs, "Make ye then your hearts the throne of the All-Merciful, and your tongues the heralds of his love. Let your devotion be manifest not only in prayer, but in the joy and purity of your conduct."
So the ultimate visible proof of devotion is the joy and purity you can actually see in someone's daily life. It means devotion isn't about looking solemn or pious. It's about being impeccably ethical, reliable, and radiating this deep inner happiness that comes from lining up your actions with your deepest commitment.
Exactly. It confirms that the inner fire we started with should show up as outer radiance and ethical strength, making the devoted person a source of hope and stability for everyone around them.
Okay, so we've laid out the nature of devotion, that inner flame and its results, service and light. But let's be real, maintaining a devoted life is rarely easy street.
No.
It demands constancy, often when things are really difficult. And the writings assure us that this persistence, this steadfast effort, is directly linked to getting divine help.
Right. This is the section on resilience.
Yeah.
And resources. Devotion isn't something you achieve once and then just coast on your own human power. The writings say when a person commits with utmost devotion, God commits to providing immense spiritual support.
We've got two really powerful passages from Baha'u'lláh here, promising specific spiritual aid for that steadfast service. The first talks about recognition and support from the heavens. This is from the epistle to the son of the wolf. "Blessed is the servant who hath arisen to serve this cause with utmost devotion and steadfastness. He shall be aided by the hosts of heaven, and his name shall be remembered in the concourse on high."
And the second passage echoes this, but focuses more on the strengthening aspect.
Okay.
This is from Gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'lláh. "Whosoever ariseth for the triumph of our cause, and maketh the uttermost effort in its service, his devotion shall not be forgotten by God. The hosts of divine assistance shall descend upon him, and he shall be strengthened with the power of the Spirit."
The promises here are pretty staggering. The rewards for utmost devotion and steadfastness are spelled out. Divine aid, hosts of heaven, hosts of divine assistance, being remembered, being strengthened by the Spirit. What are these hosts of heaven or divine assistance, practically speaking? It sounds quite mystical.
Well, in the writings, the hosts of heaven, or the concourse on high, they often refer to the sanctified souls, those who've passed on into the spiritual realms. The aid isn't necessarily visible angels descending.
Right.
It's more about spiritual, psychological, and often even material forces aligning. This divine assistance might show up as sudden insight, unexpected strength when you're about to give up, obstacles just melting away, or finding the right resources or people appearing exactly when needed.
So it suggests that the depth of your inner devotion acts like a kind of spiritual key. It unlocks capacities you couldn't access on your own. You bring the uttermost effort and steadfastness, and God provides the support needed for things to work out. It's an assurance that devoted effort is never, ever wasted or overlooked.
That total commitment gets met with total spiritual backing. It loops back to what we said earlier. Devotion means turning the heart completely, giving up everything else. The commitment is total, and so is the promised support.
Speaking of that total turning, let's go back to the highest spiritual station of devotion. The place where commitment is so intense, it actually removes the barriers, burns through everything that stands between the lover and the beloved.
Yeah, the purification aspect.
This is from Baha'u'llah's Hidden Words again. The essence of love is for man to turn his heart toward the beloved and to give up all else besides him. Such is the station of devotion that burns away the veils of separation and unites the lover with the adored.
That phrase burns away the veils of separation.
Wow.
Wow, it's so vivid. It's not just gently lifting a curtain, it's incineration.
Yeah.
What are these veils that devotion has to burn away?
Well, if we think back to obeying thyself, the veils are all those attachments, right? Material things, the ego's demands, spiritual distractions, the wrong ideas we have about life. They're the buildup of emotional and psychological clutter that blocks our spiritual vision. Devotion is the intense heat needed to just vaporize them, which leads to that state of profound detachment, which paradoxically leads to unity with God.
And this is where you see the real work involved. That burning, it's not comfortable. Detachment is needed for devotion, and devotion is the furnace that keeps detachment going. It's a continuous spiritual cleanse.
So if the veils need burning away, what's the first step? What's the ongoing effort we need to make to even prepare the heart for that fire? This is the practical side again. It doesn't just happen.
No, definitely not. It takes serious internal work. Cleansing the heart. Baha'u'lláh uses a classic metaphor in the Seven Valleys, focusing on the inner discipline needed to even reach devotion.
Okay.
He writes, "Wouldst thou to cleanse the mirror of thy heart from the dust of desire, thou wouldst behold therein the radiance of the Sun of Truth, and wouldst attain unto the station of devotion and nearness."
There it is, the prerequisite. Devotion isn't just some grace that falls on you. It's attained after you do the work of cleansing. That dust of desire, those attachments to stuff, the need for approval, putting secondary goals first, that has to be actively, rigorously swept away.
It connects perfectly back to sincerity. If the heart's coated in desire, it can't be sincere. And if it's not sincere, it can't be wholly devoted. So we have to consciously find and remove that dust. How do you even spot the dust of desire in your own life, day to day?
That's a good question. Maybe we spot it by watching our reactions. Like, if losing something material throws us into total despair for weeks, maybe that attachment was dust. If not getting praised makes us want to quit serving, maybe that need for validation was dust. It's like a spiritual audit.
Yeah.
Where is my emotional energy really invested?
And that cleansing process, that's the active work we do before we can passively receive the light of the Sun of Truth. Once the mirror is clean, the reflection happens, and then the station devotion is fully reached, leading to nearness. It confirms that devotion and detachment are deeply linked. Devotion is like detachment set on fire.
Okay, and finally, we have to touch on constancy again. Specifically when things get tough, when there's opposition. We know the devoted get help, but what's a required inner attitude when the world seems to push back hard?
Yeah, what do you do then?
Abdu'l-Bahá addresses this directly, again in Selections. O thou servant of God, be devoted to the cause of thy Lord, and let thy heart be firm in his love. Though the world rise against thee, be not dismayed, for whosoever standeth steadfast in faith shall never be forsaken.
This gives that bedrock certainty needed to keep going, given the huge effort devotion demands. The certainty is, difficulties will come. The world will rise against you sometimes, opposition, problems, lack of appreciation, but the instruction is, stay firm in his love.
That constancy, inherent in devotion, becomes the ultimate proof of its sincerity and its power. You have to stay firm despite the challenges, and the promise is huge. The steadfast will never be forsaken.
The devotion itself becomes the anchor. There's a difference between feeling dismayed, which is human, and acting dismayed, letting it derail your service.
Right.
The devoted person acknowledges the difficulty, but doesn't let it shatter their purpose or stop their action. They know that even when everything seems chaotic, they're being strengthened by that power of the Spirit we talked about.
It really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Devotion starts with that inner turning, obeying God over self. It leads to action, service, light, and it culminates in this unshakable inner firmness that radiates out and helps heal the world through constant, pure action. It's dynamic, it's transformative, it asks everything of us, but promises complete spiritual backing in return.
It really is the most comprehensive virtue, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it fully integrates our inner spiritual life with our outer moral action. It's spirituality truly lived out.
Well, this has been a really, I think, illuminating and pretty detailed deep dive into devotion. If we were to try and summarize this whole journey, we learned devotion is fundamentally about that inner flame, right? That purity of intention, turning the heart completely away from self-will, and that leads to illumination, burning away those veils.
And that deep inner state has to translate into outward action. Devotion shows itself best in constant service for the good of the world, choosing abundant deeds over just talk and letting it shine through in the joy and purity of your conduct. It's that powerful, quiet flame that keeps faith alive and makes sure our efforts actually help everyone.
Ultimately, the main point of devotion seems to be outward, selfless. Working for the happiness and well-being of others is called the highest form of worship. If you're serving humanity with a heart that's pure, sincere, and constant, then you are truly devoted. You are drawing nearer to God.
And maybe, if you found this deep dive useful, it's a chance to reflect. Where might I be holding back a bit? Where could I identify and maybe cleanse the mirror of my own heart from some of that dust of desire to let that light shine out a bit brighter?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, just want to talk directly to our community for a second. If you enjoy these deep dives, getting into the Baha'i writings like this, really studying these virtues, please take a moment right now and subscribe to the Baha'i Reflections channel.
Please do.
We look at the stats, and honestly, only about 54% of our regular listeners are actually subscribed. So hitting that button, it seems small, but it makes a huge, measurable difference. It helps us reach new people, helps us keep producing this kind of in-depth content.
We really do appreciate that support. And also, please like this deep dive. Leave a comment. We love hearing your thoughts. And share with anyone you think might find this exploration of devotion helpful. Help us spread the word.
Yeah.
And another special thank you to our YouTube channel members. Memberships start for as little as, I think, 99 cents a month.
Yeah.
And they are just invaluable. They support the channel's growth, help us keep up the quality of these deep dives.
That's right. Channel members get content early, plus there's upcoming exclusive stuff too. It all helps build the community and supports us continuing these efforts to really bring the source material to life.
So thank you again for joining us for this reflection on devotion. We really hope you'll join us next time. Our deep dive next week is going to focus on another vital virtue, dignity. We'll unpack what that means for us as individuals and in how we interact with each other.
Until then, may your heart stay firm in love and your deeds be abundant.
We'll see you next time.